Hello, folks. It's me, Kerbanaut here, and this is episode 4 of Let's Actually Play Kerbal Space Program. Let's actually play KSP, yeah. So, there's a few things that I'm going to talk about today. First of all, I got a new microphone. Whoop-a-dee-doo. I was using the microphone built into my laptop, which was significantly, good, actually. I was quite impressed with its quality. However, I've kind of grown tired of its annoyingness, so I decided to go out and buy myself a microphone. So I went out and did that, which is pretty cool. Got myself a blue snowball ice, it does the job and it's pretty awesome. Second of all, I'd like to talk about some of the things that I've added to the game file that we're playing on. I've added a couple new mods, one of which is Deadly Re-entry. I asked about that earlier in a couple of the earlier episodes, saying, should I add it, should I not, should I just leave it out? And, it turned out, yeah, we should totally have it in. It makes the game a lot more fun and interesting, so, let's go with it and see what happens. So, yeah, let's continue playing. Another mod that I've added, by the way, is the procedural fairings mod. Now, I do think procedural fairings is a bit cheaty, just because the fairings are procedural, and you don't have to try and fit things inside fairings and such, and it is a pain, but it's also really handy because they're procedural. I mean, come on, you gotta love that. And it's not like I'm gonna be specifically building completely stupidly massive things that wouldn't fit inside fairings. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if I do build something that is extremely huge that would not normally fit inside a normal fairing, then I will not put a fairing on it, because I do like my rockets to look reasonably good, and so huge fairings on the top is obviously not going to be one of the things that I want to do. Okay, so lastly, what I did was I updated FAR, so all the aerodynamics have been updated, which is both good and bad, because some of the rockets I designed earlier are no longer working. For instance, this rocket here, you saw that I had it going up to like 20 kilometers before I started doing my gravity turn, and that's because in an earlier test it kind of flipped out and tried to kill me when I got up to about 10 and started doing my gravity turn there, and that rocket is basically now expired. I can't use that efficiently. However, I decided to just kind of go with it for this mission, and kind of continue, because what this mission is doing is it's going to get us some more science so that we can get some fairings, because obviously since we've just added these fairings, we're going to need to unlock them, and to do that we need some science. So this is what we have to do. We have to go get some science. So where are we going, you may ask? Well, I figure we've been to the moon, so we might as well go to Minimus. So we go to Minimus, and this is us arriving at Minimus, changing sphere of influence, and you can see though we are quite far away from Minimus here. Our periaps is quite high up, so what I do is I just burn to bring that periaps in towards Minimus, and that's just gonna make the braking burn a lot more efficient, and also it's just gonna bring us closer to the planet, so that when we do land, we're not coming in from like a really high altitude. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're just doing a bit of high orbit science around Minimus, because we've never been here before. We don't have any of that high orbit or low orbit or any science in and around Minimus, so we have to do that. So we get ourselves a lovely little bit of EVA science, high in orbit, and then we get a bit of crew report science, both of which we can transmit back to Kerbin, so that they may start to analyze the situation. And then of course we're doing our braking burn, and we do a bit of science there with the braking burn as we come in for our landing. So we've just braked, and we're now coming in for this landing here. So there we go, we've done a bit of science just before we come in, and we're gonna come in quite low, quite fast. And this is an efficient way to do things. However, what I did not account for was the rotation of the planet. Because I was coming in a a very kind of polar orbit. It means that basically I wasn't accounting for the planet turning beneath me, and so my landing site ended up being kind of a lot thinner. I didn't have as much of a strip of land to land on, so I decided to just land here, and instead of ditching this transfer stage and letting it smash into Minimus, I thought what I could do is I could just use it to land. And by using it to land, it means that I'm not using any of the fuel in my landing stage, meaning that if something does go wrong, we can always have extra fuel to do something. It's always good to keep as much fuel as possible on you. But there we go, we have landed, and now it's time to do all of this science. So, we've got the materials bay that we're going to be studying. We've got the mystery goo containers, which are providing lots of mysterious gooey science. And of course we have the little thermometer that I've attached onto the side there that's going to show us how hot or indeed cold Minimus is. And it would probably be quite cold because Minimus doesn't have an atmosphere, and it looks so delicious. In fact, it looks a bit like an ice cream, a massive, massive ice cream. And indeed, we plant our flag and say, we just want to lick it, we just want to try and taste it. I mean, come on, seriously, it looks delicious. But, alas, that would kill our Kerbals, and so we decide not to. We decide instead to go back up to the cabin and put our experiments back in, so that we can go and explore this strange blue terrain further. And so we fly away and into the hills of Minimus, quite far away from the capsule actually, but because of Minimus's low gravity, the EVA fuel required to do this is actually quite minimal. The minimal on Minimus, you just remember that wee thing. But yes, there we go, we've got our EVA science. We've taken a little surface sample of that hill to bring back to Kerb, and hopefully the scientists will not eat it and will actually study it instead of licking it and tasting for minty freshness. But anyway, we put these experiments back into the capsule along with ourselves, and we sort through them. The experiments that will lose data when they are transmitted are kept, and the ones that don't lose any data, for example EVA reports, they are transmitted in case anything goes wrong in this mission. So there we go, we've taken off and we are returning to Kerbin. And this is where the new aerodynamics really start to mess me up. Also, what starts to mess me up is deadly re-entry. As you can see here, the parachute on the top is overheating. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to fling this, fling the spaceship so the rear end is pointing towards Kerbin. Unfortunately though, because of the aerodynamics, this is really, really hard, so I instead have to oscillate the craft back and forward to try and not make the parachute burn off, so it's not always in the stream of the hot plasma that flies by the craft. Unfortunately, with the updated aerodynamics, oscillating the craft back and forward puts a lot of strain on the craft and so rips off the bottom half when we're coming down to land. And this is a problem for me because I needed that bottom half to weigh me down so that I could deploy this parachute. Thankfully though, I managed to deploy that first parachute, and after a bit of restaging, I deploy the parachutes on the science load, and instead of jettisoning the science load and landing separately, I decide just to land all in a oneer, because, you know, having 3 parachutes on the one craft will probably be better for it, and, you know, it'll give us a lot more safety when landing. And so yes, we come down and touch back home on Kerbin at last, and that is us. Now let's see what we're going to get with this science. Well, first of all, we are really going to need these 2-meter fairings. So we get the 2-meter fairing adapter-y thing, and then we're kind of looking around thinking, you know, what are we going to get here? And I decide that we're going to get this right here, just because, you know, it's going to lead into the bigger probe parts, which we're going to lead later in the game. Then of course I decide, you know what, we're going to get this nuclear engine, and we're going to get the one just below it, which is kind of more control and RCS and all that. Okay, so with those new updated parts that we've just researched, we can see that we've got this lovely fairing here. This of course is a fairing from procedural fairings, and is quite nice actually, and it's very handy as well because it means that we're not going to get all that drag on the craft. Now, normally with KSP, with the stock aerodynamics, what's going to happen is, fairings don't matter. The aerodynamics are very basic. They don't calculate all the physics. But with far install, we need the fairings because it's going to make our ship more streamlined. Now, one thing I have noticed is that this craft becomes slightly unstable. It's just kind of lower in the atmosphere when I'm hitting, Mach 1, and kind of going above that. When I'm lower in the atmosphere, where the air's thicker, it kind of gets a bit unstable, and so my gravity turn is kind of stalled a wee bit. Anyway, there we go, the fairings are off, and you can see what this ship is. This is a lander. This lander is going to be going to our exploration vehicle. It's going to be going to either the moon or Minimus, and it's going to land on both. It has the power to do that. I have designed it to land on both the moon and Minimus. It can even take off on Kerbin, which shows how powerful it is. And it has a lot of fuel. It can definitely do the job. And it has the science as well. So it's got the science equipment. It's got the landing capabilities. This is basically an all-in-one lander. Although it is a bit wide, I really didn't like the width of the fairing I had to use to get this into space. I thought it was a bit unrealistic. However, it got the job done, and it got it done like relatively well. Anyway, here we are. We are just docking up to our exploration vehicle. And one thing you'll notice is the nav ball has this strange little red indicator on it. This, of course, is the docking alignment indicator. It's kind of an extension of the enhanced nav ball, although not kind of directly part of the enhanced nav ball. It just shows you which way you're pointing and kind of which way the docking port you have targeted is pointing. So it helps you to line up a bit easier. You can really see in this launch here the unstableness of the rocket when it gets up to Mach 1, Mach 2, and we're even getting up to such speeds that we're getting, re-entry effects exiting Kerbin. But such is life. Anyway, this, of course, is the kind of pusher. We've got a nuclear engine, because we researched that. Why not use it? So we've got a nuclear engine here. We've got a lander can, but that's not going to be landing. It was just quite a nice cat. And so what we decided to do is we're going to just go. I was just going to leave it. I was just going to leave it in orbit, maybe send up some fuel. But I realized that we have this big... massive tank of fuel with the Poodle. Well, is this the Poodle engine? I believe it's the Poodle engine, yeah. So we could use all that fuel, and because it's a nuclear engine, it's going to do it fine. What I don't realise, though, is how long a burn the nuclear engine is going to make it be. And I do forget that. I should have remembered, but, that's just the way things were at the time. And so I decided we're going to use the Poodle engine. We have the fuel, and if we run out of fuel, I have this fuel in the actual pusher, the tug itself. So we can always ditch the Poodle engine and its fuel, and then continue under the propulsion of the nuclear engine, which is actually what we have to do here because we've run out of fuel. So we just decouple that and we turn around the ship. Unfortunately, I turn on the nuclear engine before I turn it off. So before I throttle down, I turn it on, not realizing that I was still throttled up, and so I kind of ram into the stage that we've just detached. Although with the power of the Poodle engine, we've managed to get ourselves into quite an eccentric orbit, which means that it's not a lot of effort to push up a bit further. And so we decide that we're going to go to the moon. We're going to bring this to the moon, and we're going to break around the moon, and we're going to get this done. We're going to explore all the little nooks and crannies of this wonderful celestial body, and hopefully we'll learn something about its strange grey surface in the process. So here we are, we're doing our braking burn, and we're finally getting into orbit around the moon. And really, that's about it. You'll see what happens next time in the next episode when I come back and we can land on the moon, maybe send up some more fuel to this orbital station. And I have called this the Celia Station. I have no idea why, I just like the name Celia. I think it's quite a cool name. And so I called it the Celia Station. So Celia is in orbit around the moon. It's gonna have its landing in the next episode. But until then, that's me. If you have any comments or suggestions, put them down below. If you want, you can subscribe, and I like this video if you want to. But until then, that's me. Have a great day, folks. Bye bye.